This episode of Lawyers Tell All is brought to you by Law Firm Conversions. If your law firm's phone is ringing, that only means your marketing is successful. It's what happens when the phone is answered that will drive your success or failure. Visit www.intakeacademy.com and claim your free copy of Chris Mullen's groundbreaking book for lawyers and law firms that gets every call converting to become a profitable client, showing you the steps you need to take to ensure the right person is answering the phone and answering it correctly. Welcome to the Lawyers Tell All podcast, where Chris Mullins, the preeminent sales and communications consultant in the legal industry, shows you how it looks through lawyers' eyes. Here, innovators in the trenches provide powerful insights that help you connect with new clients, handle the sometimes harsh realities of the legal profession, and embrace the mindsets needed to succeed. Be sure to visit our website at www.lawyerstellall.com. And while you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, lean in, tune in, and let's take a deep dive.
Hello, everybody. It's Chris Mullins, the phone sales doctor with Intake Academy and LawyersTellAll.com. And today I'm going to be interviewing attorney Marc Victor or Marc J. Victor. And you can go to his website, which is attorneysforfreedom.com. And I'm going to let Marc interview me and I'll interview him. And we're just going to be really laid back. And Marc, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, hey, Chris, it's great to be on your podcast. So it's true. My name is Marc J. Victor, and I've been attorney now for probably about 28 years. And I guess I should start by saying I'm very proud to be an attorney. I think our profession is a very honorable profession. I think it's the most important profession in the entire world because if you don't have a functioning rule of law, a criminal justice system and a civil justice system, there's no chance of having anything else. You can't have a civilized society. I mention this to my wife sometimes. She's a cardiologist, and I think that's pretty important too. But even that profession, right? You got to have rules and regulations and what's liability and how does it all work and how do contracts work. And if you don't have that stuff figured out and running smoothly, then you can't really have a cardiology practice. And so we're really fundamental to a civilized society. And so I'm very proud to be a lawyer. It doesn't mean that all lawyers are wonderful. We also have our share of bad apples like any other profession. But I would just start by saying, because I know we're talking to lawyers here, be proud to be a lawyer. I mean, this is a very honorable profession. And, this idea of what rules are best for us to figure out how we should interact while we're on the planet. This has been a multi-thousand-year endeavor, and I think for the most part, it's turned out pretty well. I think that, especially in the United States, our jurisprudence in most areas, while I would make changes in every area if I was in charge, it actually has turned out pretty well. So as far as me, in terms of background, I'm originally from Boston. So that makes me a Patriots, Celtics, Red Sox fan. And I joined the Marine Corps when I was 17 years old. And my adventure was Operation Desert Storm, where I served on the front lines in a hole in Kuwait by the minefields. And I was honorably discharged as a sergeant and earned a commendation for my efforts while I was there. And then in 1989, I transferred from UMass Boston, where I was a political science undergraduate major, to Arizona State University, where I worked my way into a program called Justice Studies, which I really liked. It was sort of a combination of criminal justice and philosophy, I had a minor in philosophy as well, so I really liked that. And loved ASU, loved Arizona. And so always wanted to be a lawyer. I can remember writing thank you notes to people when I was 12 years old saying, I'll use this money to go to law school.
Oh, no way.
Yes, absolutely the truth. And
wow.
Indeed, after Arizona State, I graduated I graduated summa cum laude from ASU, and I went to law school in Los Angeles at Southwestern University. And the reason I went there was because they had a special program called the Scale program, which is a 2-year program. It's a very different kind of law school program. We only graduated 36 people in our class. So you got to get accepted to the law school, then accepted to this special program. It's really, if I think about it as sort of boot camp for people who want to be lawyers. You get 2 weeks off from the first year to the second year, and I absolutely loved it. I loved being a lawyer. But I had my outlook changed when I went to law school. I went in, I guess, a Republican, and I came out what you might call today a libertarian. I was very free market oriented. I was very, people should be in charge of running their own lives, their body, their property, their money, their time. And so I progressed as a, what you might say, a libertarian lawyer. And I always was promoting a free society. For me, it's always been the case that while money is important to everybody, and I think lawyers and everybody else should make as much money as they can, and they should be proud of every dime that they make, which means make it honorably. But money is not the most important thing. There are several things more important than money. For example, I think health, your health is more important than money. I think your integrity is more important than money. I think your relationships with other people is more important than money. And also, I think your freedom is more important than money. And as a criminal defense lawyer, I see this all the time, right? When people come into my office and they're at risk of losing their freedom, money's not the issue. They're happy to spend their money if they can preserve their freedom. And freedom has always been more important to me than money. So I sort of set off on, I guess, the well-worn path of being an activist attorney. Again, we have lots of activists in our profession, and I have endeavored to be one of them. And so I started my law firm about 25 years ago, and I call it the Attorneys for Freedom. It's not just a catchy title. I've been waiting, and nobody's done this yet, but I've been waiting for somebody to say, hey, Mark, what makes you guys the Attorneys for Freedom? And my answer back is every lawyer who works at my law firm has to sign what we call the Live and Let Live pledge. This comes from a global peace movement that I founded, and then I've used my firm to help promote. We call it the Live and Let Live Global Peace Movement. We have members all over the world right now in many different countries, and it's actually doing quite well. It's all based on 2 rules. One of them we call the legal principle. We call it rule number 1 sometimes. It's the most important rule, and I explain it with don't be an aggressor, right? Nobody gets to aggress on any other person for any reason, right? And of course, aggression is initiating force or being engaged in fraud or coercion or doing anything that puts another person in danger. Or I might say it in a lawyerly way, don't do anything that creates a substantial risk of harm to another person or their property. That's aggression. And nobody should ever be allowed to do that. No group, no corporation, no government. We are against that in our movement. And in all cases, at all times, to accomplish any goals, nobody gets to lay hands on anybody else or be an aggressor in any other kind of way. So that's rule number 1. And we want all laws to be calibrated, to be consistent, to be in harmony with that principle. Don't be an aggressor. And then rule number 2, which is a very different kind of rule. This is a voluntary rule. We call it our moral principle. We describe this one with just be a good human. You probably have a pretty good idea what this means, but what we're pushing here is open-mindedness and tolerance and voluntary kindness towards other people and civility, right? Even when we disagree, we should do it in an agreeable way. And building high levels of trust with other people and being committed to truth and facts wherever they go, whatever they are, even if it's different than what I believe right now. And the reason for this rule is because our goals here are to optimize human happiness and well-being, and also to minimize suffering. I like to say minimize suffering of all living things. But these are moral rules. And the big takeaway here is that moral rules don't go in the law, right? Moral rules we have to inspire people to follow. And so the goal here is to try to get everybody's morality, even my morality, your morality, whatever morality, the stuff we agree with and want to get done. We don't want to get it done through the law. We got to inspire people, because I think that's what the big fight is today, right? Everybody's at each other's throats right now, trying to tell everybody else how to live their lives. And I think you are in charge of your body, your property, your money, your time. That's what Live and Let Live is about. So that's what our firm is about. And the Attorneys for Freedom pushes the global Live and Let Live peace movement. And it's been a really awesome ride so far. I'm also running for United States Senate as we speak.
Yeah.
I'm on the ballot here in Arizona. We have a big debate coming up on October 6th. It will be a broadcast live, not just throughout Arizona, but to the nation. It's a very hard-fought race, and I'm on the ballot as the Libertarian candidate. So, of course, I don't have tens of millions of dollars to bombard people with commercials, but I think I got better ideas. And we're running a very, very principled, civilized kind of a campaign. As far as the law firm goes, we practice what we preach here. If you know, for young lawyers who are interested in being a successful, when I say successful, I don't mean just as an effective advocate for people, but also to earn money, to be an effective business owner, to do a good job for people. The best way to do that is to recognize there really aren't any shortcuts, right? Establish yourself and your business as based on principle. Hire people for character. That's what I hire people for. I say, look, I'm interested in the best law firm, not the second best law firm. And what that means is the best people. And what that means is the people with the highest character. So I tell people we are a zero tolerance for trust problems, right? We do everything we can to inspire high levels of trust at our law firm. We conduct business with people always with the win-win attitude. If it's a win for the firm, but it's not a win for the client, I won't do the deal. And that's because
one of the things, let me just throw this in, Mark, just real quick, is so I totally agree with the hire for character and attitude. And you could teach skill, but you can't teach that.
Yep.
And that's like the most important thing. But just to kind of get back to your firm and internally and team member to team member and attorneys. So we listen to tons of phone calls, recorded calls with permission on, you know, whether it's criminal or personal injury, what have you. And we teach the teams on how to handle those calls effectively. But one of the things that's missing, and maybe you folks do this, is our team is kind of taking on the trauma of these phone calls. And everything that they're listening to and they're hearing, they're absorbing it. You know, they're taking it in. And so one of the things that we push for is for the firms to also provide support for their team members to kind of get through all those kinds of calls that they're taking and how they're taking that on and they're trying to handle it. So do you folks do anything like that? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, we all act as a team here. Everybody has got everybody else's back. And so we meet on a regular basis, at least once a month. We have a firm-wide meeting. We also have section meetings, right? So the criminal law department will get together, the civil law department will get together, the marketing department gets together. But we have a firm-wide meeting at least once a month where we go over these kinds of issues. And, you know, we try to call balls and strikes. I tell people at my front desk, first of all, you don't have to be abused by people. There are all kinds of different calls that come in, right? You're dealing with the general public. And some people will call in and they're abusive. And I tell my staff up front to say, look, in a very kind, professional way, sir, sorry, you know, I'm not going to continue to listen to this abuse or whatever, and have a nice day and goodbye, that kind of thing. There's also people who call in and they're mentally ill, right? We have a lot of this. We have problems with mental illness as well. And so people call in with all kinds of ideas about what they want us to do. And we have to deal with that as well. It's unfortunate because, you know, we have so many 5-star reviews at our law firm that we have really, they're all hard earned, right? And then we get the occasional 1-star review from the person who called up with some, crazy idea and wants us to take their case and is upset because we didn't take their case. And so they give us a 1-star review. All right. I was told by some wise marketing people, Mark, you can't have all 5-star reviews. People will think it's not true. But, I respond to them as well to the extent we can ethically respond to these. And it appears now in Arizona, the ethics rules allow us to do some type of a response. So we do that as well. But, my business has thrived because of the way that we've done business. So, for example, it used to be here in Arizona that when people would come in on simple possession of marijuana cases, and they didn't have priors and there was nothing else aggravating about the case, we knew what was going to happen. They were going to get a diversion program. Well, sometimes they would come in and other lawyers would quote them many thousands of dollars to handle that case. And I would say to them, look, you don't need a lawyer. And they would look at me horrified. What do you mean? So-and-so just quoted me a whole bunch of money. And I would say, look, you really don't need a lawyer. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to get this deal. Here's what it's going to say. Here's how it works. If you don't get that, then something else is going on. Call me back. But if you do get that, take it and move on. You don't need to hire an attorney. And people sometimes are very surprised by that. One day I had a guy knock on my door and he said, Mark, you don't know me. You won't remember me. But years ago, I came to your firm and it was exactly that situation I had described. Another firm had offered him $9,000 fee to represent him on the case. I charge $100 an hour for the consultation, which we call a strategy session. And for the $100, what he got from me was, you don't need a lawyer. And he said, Mark, I followed that advice. I didn't hire anybody. I paid you $100 and I got a diversion. But I always remembered that this was an honest lawyer. This was a guy I wanted to remember. And years later, when he got into a car accident, he came here. So I could have made a quick $9,000 off the guy years ago, but we made far more money on the personal injury case years down the road. And I use that story sometimes to tell and to teach the people here at my firm about why it really, I'm not giving anything up by acting a certain way. I don't feel like I'm hurting myself or we're making less money. It might take a little bit longer, but if you really want to be successful as a lawyer, establish the kind of reputation of a person who you would want to do business with, right? And there are obvious things here. Follow the aspirational values I just laid out. Treat people exactly the way you would want to be treated. Don't burn bridges. And this isn't just clients, right? I only seek win-win agreements with everybody I interact with. I wouldn't do this podcast if it was a win-lose. I don't do business with vendors if it's a win-lose. Any employee, any client, everything I do, and even with my friends in my personal life, even with my wife, if it's not win-win, we don't do the deal. Let's find a win-win and work together. And, I follow the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's one of my favorite books. In fact, another thing we do here at our law firm, which we have done for many, many years, is I close the firm down one day a year at least, and we take everybody to an off-site location, and I talk about the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey's book, all day long. I encourage people to read that book. I call on people during the meeting. We talk about the different habits. I throw a few other things in there sometimes about living a more fulfilled life. Sometimes we encourage people to of course, to follow the 7 habits, make a mission statement. But beyond that, I encourage people to take some time to be mindful during the day. I tell them take a walk. I try to encourage people to meditate during the day. We encourage people, and we have had firm events where we sort of encourage healthy eating and exercise, get more sleep. And we want people who are well-rounded. I'm not trying to run a sweatshop here because, again, that might be a win for the firm. Well, it's a loss for the employee. It's going to turn into a lose-lose long term. So we encourage people to live balanced lives and to be fulfilled in their lives, because that's how we get the highest quality people. And at the end of the day, that's how I get the highest quality law firm.
Well, you practice what you preach, which is really good. So you get it all the way around. You get it with clients, and then you get it with your team, and then team member to team member with their internal team members. So it's a win-win. It's a plus. Let me ask you this. What about, how do you balance, the running of a law firm, the stress that can be there with just your personal life.
Yeah. Well, it's really hard, frankly, because especially when you're doing criminal defense, emergencies happen, right? It could be Saturday night and somebody gets pulled over for DUI and, you could add a bunch of facts and make it worse. But then we get the call and we got to deal with that call. But what I do is I try to take charge of my time. Like, for example, everybody knows at this law firm that Mark leaves a little bit early on Wednesdays because Wednesdays I block time out for a date night with my wife. I think it's important. That's one of my most important priorities is to continue to build a strong relationship with my wife. And so she does the same thing. So on Wednesday nights, we try to put our phones away and we have a dinner, just me and her.
You try to put the word is try. I heard try.
Yeah. And then we're not perfect, right?
You.
And I think that life isn't perfect, right? We're all imperfect people. We act imperfectly sometimes, but we're absolutely committed to excellence. I mean, people here at the firm have heard me ad nauseum state that we are ferociously and relentlessly committed to excellence. We are, but perfection is just simply not an option. Neither is utopia. So we got to be realistic about that. I think we strive to get done what we want to get done, but we recognize life's never going to be perfect. I don't bring perfection, and so I don't require perfection of anybody else. I bring a commitment to excellence, and that's what I require from everybody else. I also block other time out for other things. I block time out to have dinner with my kids once a month. I like to have dinner with each of my kids. I put my mom on the calendar. I have lunch with my mom every 3 weeks. We sit down and during the weekday, we have a lunch. I try to block that time off. Now, it's not always perfect, right? As you say, sometimes emergencies happen, but I think you really have to endeavor to take control of your time. And that means when it's time to work, you work. You get to it, you focus, you get to the job, you get it done, you do the best you can possibly do. You remain open to criticism at all times. You learn something and you improve, right? It's like I tell people all the time, I love it when somebody proves to me I'm wrong on something. Rather than be upset about that or be defensive about that, I much prefer to say, thank you so much for showing me I was wrong on something, because now I have an opportunity to change my position and improve going forward. That's what I'm interested in doing. I'm not trying to pretend like I'm right on everything or I have been right on everything. So I think that we try to lead by example here. And that's one of the things we say in the Live and Let Live movement. We say first own the message, right? Really understand, get your brain around the message, and then live the message. Let's not just talk about being good humans. Go out and do something to actually be a good human, right? Lead. And so that's what we do at our law firm. That's, I don't have some big a wall between my business life and my personal life. I think Marc Victor is who Marc Victor is, and I act the same way in my personal life that I act in my business life. We're tough on business. We have high standards, but we don't expect perfection. We tell everyone at our firm, nobody yells here. We don't have any of that divisiveness. We don't put up with it. No, there's no reason for that. Crises happen, things happen, mistakes happen. When they do happen, we take a step back. Well, first thing we do is everybody gets together and we fix the mistake, right? That's the number one thing. Let's get the problem solved. If we made a mistake, let's own it. Let's learn from it. Let's fix it. Those kinds of things. But then we take a step back. We think about it. What can we do to make sure this doesn't happen again? We teach, we learn, that kind of thing. And then we move on and we wait for the next mistake, right? Because mistakes happen in life and we deal with them and we own up to them. And if we make a mistake on somebody's case, which I'm very proud to say doesn't happen very often, we own it. We say, yep, we made a mistake and we move on. Nobody is perfect. And I'm not trying to pretend like I'm perfect or anybody else is perfect. It's called the practice of law, right? You do the best you can. It's not a science. You try to make the best judgments you can. But nobody is right about everything. I think you just try to do your absolute best and you take your wisdom and you explain your situation. This happens a lot with clients, right? Should I go to trial or take the deal? There's a lot to talk about there. I don't put my judgments in place of other people's judgments, but I do my best to fully explain to them so they're making decisions that are informed, that are knowing, that are voluntary. They know what my position is. But if they're informed, it's their life, and we march forward and do the best we can. I've had that situation where I've told clients in the past that maybe they should take the plea, and I've had clients say, no, I got a great lawyer, I want to go to trial. And I say, you're going to lose, bad mistake. And we've won. And I've had that weird kind of scrambled egg on my face.
Yeah, right.
Yes, so this happens. I'm proud to say that I have never had anybody who's listened to my advice who, let me say it like this. Every trial that I have ever lost has been a trial that somebody has ignored my advice and gone to trial over my objection. So I feel like I've given very good advice on that point. And on the trials we've won, okay, those have turned out great, but you're always dealing with big risk there. And I don't try to substitute my risk tolerances for other people's risk tolerances. My job is to be a tool to make sure they're fully informed, and then they'll engage, and I do the best I can at trying to fulfill what it is they want to see done.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I still find to be a challenge to teach team members at law firms is empathy. So to be able to be comfortable enough with yourself to provide empathy. So let's just say to the prospective client while you're on the phone talking to them, for example, a lot of people have difficulty with that. And how about your team? Do you focus a lot on empathy? The attorneys, I also find that to be a challenge with attorneys. What do you think?
Well, like I said, I try to hire for character. And so I feel like we have good quality people. I think that you have to be balanced in everything you do. You can get too close to a case as well. And there's a danger there as well where we get too personally involved in the case. That's why you hire a lawyer. You need somebody who's not right on top of things, somebody who's a little bit more dispassionate. But, I'm not shy to say I have been a criminal defendant myself. I had an experience several years ago where I was mistreated by Customs and Border Patrol. They thought I had intentionally failed to declare a couple of watches I bought in a duty-free store on board a cruise ship, and I was treated very badly and almost killed. I was the guy at the bottom of the pile who was saying, I can't breathe. I had a tremendous experience, and it really kind of changed my life. Incidentally, if people are interested, I did it's on my website. People can just go to Attorneys for Freedom. The name of the talk is What I Learned from Liars and Neanderthals. And I give my whole story of what happened with exhibits and this and that. But the point is, I've been on the other side of the desk where I had to hire a criminal defense lawyer. I was taken into custody. I was put in a solitary. I had that experience.
It's terrible, yeah.
Yeah, it's one thing to get a tour of the jail. It's another thing to be in the jail, not knowing if your life is ruined. Fortunately, I'm still a licensed attorney, so you could imagine things turned out very, very well for me. And I don't want to ruin the story for people who might be interested to see it. But I encourage people to look at this. But I got a firsthand, up-close experience about what it's like to be a criminal defendant. So I know what it's like to be in the jail and to have somebody come and pound on your door and say, your lawyer is here to meet with you. I remember what that was like. And I think about it every time that I go to visit somebody. It was just the most, wow, someone's on the outside who's trying to help me in this situation. Like, what a feeling that is. And to be that guy now who gets to show up and visit other people in the jail is just an awesome experience. I mean, can't tell. I love doing criminal defense work. I think you should do what you love. The law is vast enough. Don't just fall into something. If you've made the trek to get to law school and to get through law school and to take and pass the bar, and you've probably picked up a lot of debt and you've put in a lot of time, don't just fall into a job. Figure out what you want to do and then do that, and then commit to be the absolute best at it. If you're going to do it big.
Absolutely. Two other questions I want to ask you. On your website, it talked about the master class. What is the master class?
Well, these are things that we actually enjoy doing. I really built my practice on giving speeches to different groups. When I was,
I can believe that.
Yes,
I can believe that.
When I started out, I gave speeches to different groups about freedom. I've always been the attorney for freedom, and people like that. And so they said, hey, if I ever need a lawyer, this is the guy I'm going to hire. So I started speaking to kids, high school age kids, or even younger. And I started giving a talk that I called The Two Fastest Ways to Ruin Your Life. And I talked about, drinking and then driving, or taking drugs and driving a car, and pulling out a firearm when you're not allowed to, and how quickly things can go the wrong direction for you. And so that was very popular. So we've expanded that into this master class. Andy Marcantel, who's a lawyer who, frankly, he's one of the best lawyers I've ever met. I hired him. He clerked for my firm when he was in law school. I think he was a second year.
Wow.
He's just matured into a really, first of all, very principled kind of lawyer who I really appreciate. He inspires me. He's one of the best lawyers I've met. He fights hard. We come up with out of the box arguments. We're not afraid to appeal, to take a special action, go to the higher court, bring novel arguments under state constitutions, things like that. And so Andy said, look, I'll do the master class. I'll expand it to a whole bunch of different areas. It's really for kids. It's for parents to give to their kids.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah.
Here's a practicing criminal defense lawyer sharing some wisdom about how people ruin their lives.
Yeah, that's great.
Because, this job gives you a front row seat to really see the mistakes that people make and the consequences.
And it just changes everything in the snap of a finger.
Yes. And so you learn from, somebody once said, wisdom is the ability to learn from the mistakes of other people, right? I mean, failing to learn from your own mistakes, this is just stupidity, right? But learning from other people's mistakes, this is wisdom. And this job gives you a front row seat to see other people's mistakes. And so we put that class out there to just throw it out there. And I've always benefited from sharing information, putting information out there. There's lots and lots of videos. If people check them out on our website. They're just public information kind of videos. Look, if you just do the right thing, you'll find that this is your best marketing campaign. People want a lawyer who's genuine, somebody who's committed to the right principles, somebody who's going to work hard for them and be honest with them. I mean, I remember as a young lawyer, they started doing this professionalism class, and it was one of the justices from the Arizona Supreme Court. And he gave this long talk about lawyers don't return phone calls and don't do this. And, all the complaints you hear about lawyers. And I was just this young lawyer and nobody knew who I was. And after the class, I went up to him and I said, Justice, this stuff actually is good for me. Because, see, I call people back right away. And they're surprised when I do that. It really makes it easy for me to stand out and really look good. And he said, I hadn't thought about it like that. But for a young lawyer who's, in a profession that it sometimes is very maligned, and sometimes for good reason, right? Lawyers get busy. They don't call people back. Like I tell people, my store is open 24/7, 365. I'll call you back on Christmas Day. I'll call you back on New Year's Day. You can call me at 2 a.m. You may not get me. You may get one of my lawyers, but you may get me. I still take those calls. And, there's a reason we do this stuff, because I think that overall, that's what people are looking for. Those are freebies to me. Return calls, return emails, do what you say you're going to do. I mean, don't say it if you're not going to follow through on it.
That's the best marketing you can have right there.
They apply to any business, and a legal business is no different, right? Deliver a good product at a good price. And in our case, it's the service. It's really our time and our advice. Do a good job for people, and they will tell other people about the job you do. The reverse is also true, right? If you do a bad job, people are happy to tell people about the horrible job that you did. So again, there really isn't a shortcut. What's the secret sauce to being successful as a lawyer? Do a great job for people. Do what you say you're going to do. Always seek win-win agreements with everybody. There is no shortcut.
Yeah, that's a good point. What about the $25 retainer? I think I saw that on your website too. What is that?
This is interesting. I can tell you where this came from. I was once, when I was a young lawyer, I was approached to be a provider for one of these discount legal programs. And they said, hey, Mark, we'll send you some work. I said, what do I have to do? They said, well, discount your fee, whatever percentage. And I said, well, okay, I mean, I set my fees wherever. They said, we don't care where you set the fee. Just show them a 20% discount. And I thought, this thing is a kind of BS type of a
Yeah.
program. And years later, people were complaining because they said, Mark, we used to be able to afford you. Because when I was a young lawyer, heck, I'd almost pay you for me to represent you.
Right.
But as I became more and more in demand, and I have a limited amount of time, I increased my hourly rate. And people started saying, look, Mark, you're getting expensive. So I thought, what would be a win-win? Well, if I get a bunch of people paying me $25 every month in advance for the right to hire me at a discounted rate, well, then when somebody needs to hire me at the discounted rate, I can offset that with all the $25 bills I'm getting every month. This seems like a win-win all the way around. And so we decided to compete with these other programs that I thought weren't doing such a great job. So we formed up the Attorneys on Retainer program. The idea is basically, look, you pay $100 to get into the program. It's $25 a month. And then if you need us, if something comes up right now, if of course your problem pre-exists you signing up, then sorry, it doesn't cover that. But if you sign up and then a problem arises, then you call us and we do it. I think the rate is $175 an hour, which is a far cry from the $650 that I charge, sort of an off the rack rate now. And then we have another program that we created because we got so popular on self-defense cases. I've been giving a talk on legal rights and responsibilities of gun owners for about 20 years now. Sure, I think competent, responsible adults should be able to have firearms, but if you're not competent and you're not responsible, well, then you present a risk to other people. So I embarked on a class really to educate people on when you can take your firearm out and when you can't. And of course, a lot of people are very surprised at how conservative my advice is in terms of pulling out your firearm. So I became very well known in the sort of the gun community. So we formed up a different program, still part of Attorneys on Retainer. We call it the Self-Protection Program. Similar, it's $100 to join, $25 a month. But if you pull out your firearm and you get charged with a crime and you say, hey, look, I acted in self-defense, we defend you even if it goes to trial for zero, nothing for legal fees. And so this program has worked out really great. It's very popular. A lot of the gun people, they want us anyway because they're familiar with our firm. I'm very, very well known, even across the nation, for commenting on self-defense cases. I've done a lot of that work. And so people say, hey, if I get into a problem, Mark and his team at Attorneys for Freedom, they're the ones I want anyway. It's worth it to me to pay $25. If I have a problem, I know I got a legal team, and they'll take it to trial if need be. So they don't have a financial disincentive to go to trial. It's really a win-win. We love doing these kinds of cases. I mean, there are many cases I enjoy. Self-defense, that's up there pretty high to the top. I think those are very fun, interesting issues. There's always something to argue in these cases. And, you know, frankly, they're great. I'm a student of that interaction between somebody initiating force wrongfully and then somebody reasonably responding to that with appropriate self-defense. And there are lots of gray areas here, which is what makes it so fun of an area to practice in. So yeah, it's been a very popular program, especially for people who are gun owners.
Yeah, fantastic. So any last words for everybody?
Well, for people who are new lawyers or planning to be lawyers, I would say you made a great choice. I think it's an awesome profession. I would say, look, if you've decided to do it right. Figure out, take a step back and say, what kind of lawyer do I want to be? Do I want to be one of these lawyers that isn't really known for doing good legal work and doesn't call people back and sort of the shyster kind of lawyer that so many people unfortunately think about lawyers? Or do I want to be one of those lawyers who's an activist, who's helped to push a free and civilized society forward, somebody who's respected by judges and prosecutors and other criminal defense lawyers? I can tell you, I feel very comfortable saying we have earned that kind of a status where we practice. And it's so much better to hear judges and prosecutors complimenting our firm and saying, oh, you've got, you know, to the client, you've got a very, very good lawyer, Mr. So-and-so. You know, I know in this, you can be a more effective advocate, right? Because when I stand up and say, Judge, I got a motion to suppress, the judge knows it's well taken. The judge knows I'm not going to bring a frivolous motion. I'm not going to argue something ridiculous. And so does the prosecutor. So when I say to the prosecutor, hey, I think there's an issue here, generally they listen because I won't say it if it's not the case. And so don't ever give up your integrity. You should safeguard that. That is your best of the trade, your integrity, your character, your reputation. And then, of course, as they taught you in law school, get a good paralegal, right? This is invaluable advice. And as the owner of a law firm, it's very hard to get high quality people. So when you get them, keep them, which means you better pay them and you better treat them properly. You know what kind of environment they want to work in? One that's win-win. One that people who run the place are committed to principle and character and who aren't trying to run a sweatshop, who really sincerely care about the people who work here and the clients and the vendors and everybody else. There is no benefit. In fact, it's to your detriment to shortchange these things. Really commit to practicing with character. I promise you, you'll make more money in the long run, not less.
Yeah. Love what you do. Love being a lawyer. That's really, really important. I think a lot of lawyers forget that. I think they forget, after time, they just forget why they became a lawyer and how much they used to love it. And it would be great if they just kind of got back to loving it.
Yeah, once in a while, take a pro bono case. We did.
Yeah, there you go.
Corona, we had an interesting case that we took, and then we say sometimes just for the freedom of it, we took it. It turned out great. Yeah, we got some publicity for it. It turned out nice. It was a good thing to do. I'm not saying you should spend all your time working for free. You don't have to spend any of your time working for free, but it's a good thing to do sometime. And so if a case strikes you and you want to take it for an activist reason, do it, or at least discount it. Sometimes I say, look, I won't take it for free, but I'll discount it, put a little skin in the game, and I'll fight for you, and we'll do it. So I become very flexible with those things. Have some fun with it, Judges are human, prosecutors are human, lawyers on the other. I begin when I stand up in court, I wish everybody a happy Monday, happy Tuesday, happy Wednesday.
I can see that.
Every single time. Bring it big. Bring it big every single time.
Or don't bring it at all, right?
And 9 times out of 10, the judge will crack a little smile up there on the bench.
Exactly. And that's what you want.
It gets everybody in the right frame. Look, we're all on the planet for a very short time. We're all brothers and sisters, right? Let's stop with the divisiveness and the tribalism and all this crazy stuff. Let's recognize that we're all here together. We all want the same things, roughly. We can work together. We can act in a win-win way and both benefit. We don't have to be at each other's throats. Right. We need to get back to respecting each other and seeing each other as human beings, like I said, as brothers and sisters. And it's okay to disagree. We need to get out of these tribes that we're in right now and show some more respect to our fellow humans and be more humble about what we believe about the world and be open-minded. And let's be absolutely grateful for the opportunity that we have. Look, we live at the best time ever to be alive, despite all the problems we're dealing with. And we got a lot of serious problems that we got to tackle. It's still the best time ever to be alive on the planet. We live in maybe the best place ever to live. Let's enjoy it. Let's treat each other with respect and kindness and the aspirational values that I talked about earlier. And by the way, one final thing I'll say, if you like what I'm talking about here today, go to liveandletlive.org. Join the new global peace movement and be part, as we like to say, be part of the solution. I promise you, you'll love it. You'll meet great people from around the world. Everybody's committed to this phrase, live and let live. Even if people live in different ways than I live or you live, it's okay. As long as they're peaceful, look, we can try to convince them all day long to live otherwise, but if they're not aggressing, that's all we can ask. That's a minimum standard of conduct. Let's draw the line right there. Nobody gets to put hands on other people. Everybody's in charge of charting their own course, defining what makes them happy and pursuing their happiness in any peaceful way they choose.
Fantastic. Okay, well, wonderful. All right, everybody. Here we are again with Lawyers Tell All. Thank you so much, Marc. Bye, everybody. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to Lawyers Tell All, where Chris Mullins takes you on a journey with lawyers in the trenches who show you the realities of what it takes to succeed in this chaotic, crowded, ever-changing profession. Remember to visit our website at www.lawyerstellall.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on Lawyers Tell All.